Hi, I'm Brian Lord, President of Premier Speakers Bureau, and welcome to our free Virtual Friday series. This is a great way for you to learn some great tools to help you and your teams get better and learn more about virtual as well to help your company too. Our guest this week is Kevin Brown. Kevin is the author of The Hero Effect. He's one of our all-time favorite speakers. I love it. Even my family loves it. So, Kevin, thank you so much for coming on and being here with us.
No, man, this is amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're actually in the studio live together.
I know. It's just kind of crazy thing here.
It's amazing, this world we live in today.
Well, without further ado, I want to make sure I turn it over to you so that you have enough time to share your story, and then we'll come back at the end with some Q&A.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And welcome to everybody. Free Virtual Friday here at Premier Speakers Bureau. You know, we need more Fridays in the world, I'll tell you that. We need more hope in the world, and we most certainly need more heroes. You know, I've literally been around the world in the last 5 years talking about what it means to be a hero. And you know, the world would have you believe that heroes are ordinary people who do extraordinary things. And one of the things that I've learned on this journey is that we've had the definition of a hero wrong. Heroes are not ordinary people doing extraordinary things. In fact, we believe it's just the opposite. You see, we think heroes are extraordinary people who choose not to be ordinary. You know, one of the things that we've learned about heroes and high performance is that ordinary is a choice. And far too many people make an ordinary choice every single day of their lives. Far too many leaders, far too many parents, maybe spouses and significant others. People show up every single day and they kind of go through the motions. They fly below the radar. Occasionally they'll do something noteworthy, something extraordinary, and then shrink right back to their ordinary life. You see, we believe the definition of a hero is an extraordinary person who chooses not to be ordinary. In fact, we believe that every single human being, everybody watching this broadcast, everybody on this planet, we believe that everybody was created with talents, gifts, and abilities as unique as their fingerprints. And they were put here to use those gifts in the service of others. We think heroes make life better for the people they serve. And you know, we live in unprecedented times. We live in this season of COVID-19, and I want you to understand, it's a season. You know, one of the things that I share with all of my clients is that we live in this season called COVID-19. This is not our new normal. This is not our new reality. This is a season, and seasons come and go. This will pass. This is not our first crisis, and it won't be our last. And one of the things that I know about heroes is that heroes always leverage change to get better. There's two very distinct types of people that are going through this crisis, two very distinct types of organizations. There are people who are hunkered down and holding on, trying to survive. And then there are those who are leveraging this season to get better, to grow themselves, to grow their organizations, to find new paths and new ways to serve their clients and customers. You know, heroes always have a different vision. And that's one of the things that I wanted to share with all of you today. Heroes see life very different than everybody else. They have supernatural vision. And you know, I've had heroes my whole life. I bet you have too. When I was a kid, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. I mean, I was a kid, but I knew she was something special. But of all the heroes, I wanted to be Superman. Every little boy wanted to be the Man of Steel. And Superman, he could fly, he could leap tall buildings, faster than a locomotive, or faster than a speeding bullet, whatever it was, I don't remember. But Superman was the one. And I wanted to be Superman. Listen, I used to put a bath towel around my neck and run through the house jumping off furniture pretending to fly. It drove my mother crazy, and my wife didn't like it either. I remember one time I had my cape on, and I'm running through the house, and I jumped off the couch, and I flew 3 feet. I had no fear. I climbed the cabinet next to our refrigerator, and I jumped, and I flew 5 feet. I went outside. I climbed the tree next to our garage. I got on the roof of the garage, and I walked right to the edge. I looked down at the driveway below. I looked out at the big blue sky. I gave the cape a tug. Sometimes you have to trust the cape. I put my arms out. I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath, and I jumped, and I flew straight down. Landed in the driveway, splat. And in one superhuman leap, my mom from the house to the driveway swooped in. She picked up her baby boy and dusted me off, checked me for bruises, kissed me right here on the forehead, and then spanked me like I have never been spanked before in my life. And from that moment on, Superman was grounded. And you know, in this time of crisis, this time of COVID, this season that we're in, I think about that kid. That kid had such a special way of seeing the world. That kid, he saw life so different than everybody else. He knew that he had something special. He never saw the world as it was. He always saw it as it could be. You see, that's that supernatural vision. That's that special quality that I believe heroes have. You know, one of the heroes in my life is my wife, Lisa. I married a real-life Wonder Woman. She has superpowers all her own, and I'm going to tell you, she's one of the most amazing human beings I've ever known. She sees life in all its beauty. She thinks everything happens for a reason. It's sunshine and rainbows. And listen, she's not naive. She understands what it means to have challenges. And we've been married for 24 years. I do everything she tells me to do because I'm afraid she might leave. And we are the proud parents of a young man named Joshua. In fact, he goes by Josh Brown. If you know Josh Brown, he thinks his name is all one word. He thinks it's hyphenated, Josh Brown. Now, Josh has autism, and we've known that since he was a little bitty guy. But I want to tell you something that my wife did, how this supernatural vision came into play when he was 5 years old. You see, when he was 5 years old, we sat in a school conference room, big mahogany table, doctors on one side, teachers on the other. And I'll never forget this. A doctor spoke first, and he said, "Mr. and Mrs. Brown, your son has autism. There's some things you need to understand about your son. In fact, you need to ready yourself for the road ahead. It's going to be a steep climb. Listen, Joshua is uneducable in many ways. He's not going to learn like the other children. In fact, your son most likely will not graduate high school. If he does, he will get a special education diploma. There'll be an asterisk by his name." I remember looking over at Lisa, and I saw the tears streaming down her face, teardrops falling on the papers in her lap, and quite honestly, I became angry. I immediately started thinking about everything that Joshua wasn't going to do. The life he wasn't going to live, the one that I vicariously wanted to live through that boy, had just vanished. You see, he wasn't going to be the star Little League shortstop like his dad was. He wasn't going to be the star quarterback and captain of the high school football team like his dad was not. And as I sat there having a pity party of one, I looked back and the teardrops were gone. And thankfully, moms get a little something more than dads. Natural-born leaders with natural-born vision, especially when it comes to their babies. She sees that boy not as he is, but as he can be, which is the number one job of leadership and parenting and friendship. Listen, she sees that boy for all the hope and promise that was placed in him at birth, and then she did what leaders do. She took advantage of this supernatural vision, and she grabbed a hold of the storyline that life had given us, and she started to rewrite it. Folks, I'm amazed at how many people get up every single day of their lives and they accept the storyline that life gives them as their own truth. They accept the storyline that a pandemic gives them, the storyline that a doctor gives them, the storyline that somebody else's opinion gives them, and they walk it out as their reality. And they never give one single thought to the fact that the pen is always in their hands. You see, I watched as my bride crafted a new vision for our boy that day. And she planted that seed. She looked at her boy and she said, "Don't you listen to him. You cover your ears. Baby, I heard what he said, but that's not your destiny. You keep your eyes right here. Mom's got a different plan for your life." And for 18 years, I've watched as this leader with the title of mother has used that vision, has used that storyline to attract the teachers, the tutors, the guides, the mentors, and coaches into our lives. One by one, transforming our son into everything that they said he couldn't be. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to be so careful the vision that we cast for the people in our lives. It's been my experience that people will live up to or down to the vision that we cast for them, up or down to the label that we place on them. Oh, listen, Josh not only graduated high school, he graduated with honors. He not only graduated high school with honors, he went on to college. It's amazing what happens when we begin to see life through this lens of optimism. It changes the world around us, but it starts by changing the world within us. You see, so many times we accept what's going on in the world as our truth. And the fact of the matter is we have an obligation to write that story every single day, not only for our own life, but for the people that we serve and serve with. Right now, the world needs hope more than ever. The world needs heroes now more than ever. You know, when Josh was a little boy, we went to Walt Disney World. And it was one of the most memorable trips that we've ever taken as a family. When he was about 9 years old, we went to Walt Disney World. And one of the things that we did while we were there is we went to see this movie called A Bug's Life. It was a fantastic movie. And it was just what I needed in my life, something fun, a great distraction. And we sat in this movie theater, and it was a matinee. This place wasn't packed yet. We walked in, we got our glasses, and we were getting situated. And while we were getting situated, I noticed this other little family. Mom and dad, 3 kids. And there was an argument going on between mom and dad. And we couldn't hear what they were saying, so we moved closer. And as I got over there, here was the conversation. Dad kept saying, I'm not putting on those stupid glasses. Mom said, you're putting on the glasses. We are here for the children. Dad said, I don't want to put on those glasses. They're going to make me look like a dork. And I'll never forget, Lisa leaned over and she said, he should have thought about that before the mouse ears and the fanny pack. It's too late. And I always think about this guy. Whenever I think about this idea of optimism, when I think about looking through this lens and seeing the world not as it is, but as it can be, I think about that guy. We sat there in that movie theater. We sat there, and if you didn't have the glasses on, you didn't see the picture the way it was intended to be seen. You see, you didn't see through this lens that gave you the full beauty, the appreciation for this masterpiece. Without the glasses on, the masterpiece became a mess. And see, we live in that world right now. And there's so many people that they're unwilling to put the lens of optimism on. They're unwilling to see the world as it can be. They're unwilling to see each other as we should be. And tragically, we start to see each other exactly as we've become. You see, the ones that I know, the heroes in our world today, the high performers in our world today, they look squarely through that lens of optimism. They see, as my friend Simon Bailey would say, they see what everyone else sees, but they understand it differently. They see what everyone else sees, but they understand it differently. You see, the great ones always understand what needs to get done. They always understand that there's another step that they need to take, another gear that they need to kick into. And I've watched so many people in the midst of this COVID season shrink down and take the glasses off, worried about what other people might say or what other people might think. And it reminds me of what my dad used to say. My dad used to say when I was a boy, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. All that matters is what you believe. You see, if you go back to when my wife was working with our son, when she was working on that vision with him of what his life could be, it wasn't an easy process. You see, seeing life through the lens of optimism, pursuing success, leveraging change, it's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. You see, it's not easy. It's most certainly not easy when we're in the midst of this crisis. You see, we were in the midst of our own crisis. They told us all of these things that our son wouldn't do. And I'll never forget, Lisa got down in the ditch with our son, and she went to work. And the first thing she had to do was she had to get better. You see, we can't give what we do not have. You see, when we bring out the best in other people, we can only do it if we find the best in ourselves first. You see, Lisa had to go back to school. She had to figure out what school was like. It had changed since we'd been there. And she got down in the ditch with our son, and she rolled up her sleeves and she went to work because she had a big vision. And she got up every single day to pursue that vision. She wasn't consumed with what the rest of the world was thinking. She wasn't consumed by what everybody told her was our reality. She went to work and she got down in the ditch. And listen, leadership isn't for babies. Leadership is a tough proposition. You see, you've got to be willing to get down in the ditch and do that work. And it's not always going to make the people around you happy. Listen, there were times when my wife and my son couldn't be in the same room together. There were times, listen, thank goodness leadership isn't a popularity contest. It's always about potential, not popularity. You see, when you're drawing out the best in people, if you can bring out their potential, those leaders become popular. But they don't seek popularity first. They seek potential in others. And she got down in the ditch. Listen, I was there when my son put his head in his hands and said, "Why doesn't my brain work?" And a leader with the title of mother leaned down and said, "Sweetheart, your brain is just fine. It takes a little more work to be special." You see, I've had a front row seat to watch leaders like Lisa, to watch heroes like my son Josh, to think about sitting in that theater and having those glasses on and watching this magnificent masterpiece called A Bug's Life, knowing that without the glasses on, the movie screen looked completely different. And I think that's where we are today. When we think about eliminating this ordinary thinking from our lives, I encourage you to put the lens of optimism on. I encourage you to activate your supernatural vision. I encourage you to look inside yourself and never, ever make an ordinary choice. You see, we live in a world that needs hope. We live in a world where people need to be moved from where they are to someplace new. We live in a world that needs accountable leaders who are willing to show up and pour the best of themselves into the people around them, to truly bring the very best of themselves to this moment and pour it into the lives of others. You see, I believe we all have those talents, gifts, and abilities as unique as our fingerprints. And you know, it's an interesting thing. John Maxwell says when we die, they will summarize our entire life in one sentence and they'll carve it in a piece of stone. Doesn't it make sense for you to decide what they're going to write on your rock? Doesn't it make sense for you to decide what the through line for your life is going to be? Listen, we spend more time on our logos and our taglines than we do the through line for our life. You decide what they're going to write on your rock. Listen, don't leave it to the people you leave behind. They'll get emotional and mess it up. I've seen it. You decide the through line for your life, and then get up every day for the rest of it and walk it out. We have a unique opportunity. Listen, this is our season. I think it's one of the greatest times in human history to be alive. And I know there's people watching going, Kevin, how could you say that? Because it's our time. This is our time. This is our time to show the world what we're made of. This is our time to bring the best of ourselves and pour it into the people we serve and serve with. This is our time to leave our fingerprints all over this planet, all over the lives of the people that we intersect with, the people who flow in and out of our lives. You know, one of the things that I always think about before I take the stage, whether it's virtually or in person, is how do you make an impact in a short amount of time? How do you make an impact? How do you leave a mark that cannot be erased? It's by showing up and eliminating ordinary thinking from your life, eliminating garbage thinking from your life, not buying into the storyline that life is trying to give you, but knowing that you have the pen in your hands. The pen is in your hands to decide what the through line of your life is going to be. And I love what Bob Dylan said. Bob Dylan said a hero is someone who understands the responsibility that comes with freedom. We are blessed to live in the world that we live in. This is the greatest nation on planet Earth. In spite of all of our trials, in spite of all of the challenges, in spite of all of the conditions that we face, this is still the greatest nation on planet Earth, and we need to honor that responsibility that comes with freedom by knowing that the pen is in our hands, and we have the opportunity to write a story, to add another chapter to someone else's life, to change the narrative, beginning with our own. There's two stories we tell. There's the story we tell ourselves, and there's the story we tell everybody else. The pen is always in our hands. Listen, when the end comes for us, we have a choice of what will be written on that rock. And I encourage you to get up every single day, intentionally living out your legacy. And there will be no mistaking the fact that you were here, because we'll have your story. Your story will live in the lives and the hearts of everybody that you ever touched. Oh, I think the world needs heroes, but more importantly, I think the world needs your hero. I have a sign in my office that says, always be yourself, unless you can be Batman. And then you should always be Batman. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Kevin Brown. It's been an honor to be with you on this free virtual Friday. I can't wait to see you in person soon. Thank you all very much.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for sharing that story. I've heard parts of it. A lot of it's new to me. I apologize for those. Hopefully, I didn't mess up the audio of me laughing during a couple of those parts there. But thank you for sharing that. One of the things I'm always fascinated about is sort of the root of different things. So, you know, with Josh's mom, your wife, where do you think that came from? Because not everybody chooses to have the response she had, that chooses to accept what an expert is telling them. Where do you think that came from?
I think it's pure determination. I think it's part mother's love. I think it's part leader. I think it's part her optimism that she sees life with. Ever since I've known her, ever since we met, she's the most positive human being I know. And I didn't grow up in a great environment. I grew up in some challenging times. I went through some dark periods as a young man. And I tend to look at life a little bit pessimistically. And Lisa's worked on me for 24 years. Man, I'm telling you, she has changed. She has taught me this skill set of optimism. Mm-hmm. Optimism is a skill set. A lot of times when I say optimism, people are like, oh, you mean that positive thinking stuff. I'm not talking about the positive thinking stuff. I'm not talking about sticking your head in the sand and denying reality. As Andy Andrews would say, it's not about denying reality. It's about denying the finality of this moment that we're in. Right? It's not accepting this as your prognosis. It may be the diagnosis, but it doesn't have to be the prognosis. And so she sees life that way. And she always tells me, babe, you need to be more positive. And I would always say, I'm positive things aren't going to work out for me. But she chooses not to buy into the storyline someone else wants to give her. And you know, she grew up, she went through challenging times too, but she always has had this ability, whether it's with me, whether it's with Josh or a stranger. She can paint a vision for somebody that is just, it's quite magical.
So speaking of that, you know, how do leaders right now, what are some practical steps that leaders can take today to instill that either in their teams at work or families at home?
I think one of the things that I've noticed in particular, especially with the leaders that I work with, the great leaders, the high performers, the heroic leaders, they have this uncanny ability to boil things down, right? Because things are so enormous right now. Things are so out of control. Things seem too heavy. We're facing big burdens, right? COVID. It's an election year. We're all cooped up. We're all working from home. We're jockeying for desk space at the dinner table, and we're trying to teach our kids, and we're doing all of this stuff, and it feels very heavy. And I think as leaders, we have a unique opportunity to be able to boil some of that down and say, look, it is overwhelming. It is an enormous task before us, but let's just talk about the next step. Let's talk about what we need to do right now, because we don't know all the steps, because we don't know how all this is going to play out. And so many times people get paralyzed because they think they need to know all the steps. And the truth is we only need to know the next step. I mean, think about every strategic plan that's sitting on shelves in conference rooms all over the world that on March 12th, in my case, on March 12th, those strategic plans, you could just go burn them because they're no longer valid, because there were all of our steps. And one of the things that I've noticed, one of the things, and we say this in our company, the goals have not changed. The path has changed. On March 12th, I got a phone call. I was 2 hours from being on stage in Philadelphia. CEO called and said, sorry, brother, we got to shut it down. We cannot have this meeting. And I went home. And I stuck my head in the sand. I pretended COVID wasn't real. And by the time late April got there, I realized that, hey, look, this is the real deal. And so we had a choice. We could either hunker down and hold on, or we could decide to make some significant changes in our business. And we did. We figured out online learning. We figured out virtual. We figured out this video-based training. And since June of this year, we've done nearly 50 virtual events. And that's because I've watched my clients, the best of the best, who know how to adapt to change, figure out what the next step is, put one foot in front of the other. The other thing that heroic leaders do is they cast hope. They cast a vision that is hopeful. They watch their language. It's what I said a little while ago. This is a season. We've got people running around saying this is the new normal, the sky is falling, this is our new reality. And yeah, we're in tough times. But this is a season. We've been in tough times before. We've been in recessions. We've been in turmoil. We've been through tough times. And here's the kicker. This won't be the last time we go through a tough season. But we can go through this season, or we can grow through this season. And we just decided our mission is to add value to people's lives. And we figured out how to do it over a camera. In a studio. We can do this if we stay focused on our vision.
How do you feel your message has changed, or maybe what parts of it has changed in the last 6 months?
Well, certainly the relevance. Right? Because we turn on TV, we go online, we see the word hero. We see the words essential workers. And one of the things that's been interesting to me as I look at our message, the hero effect, being your best when it matters the most. Well, that's never been more relevant than right now. What we need right now are people who can be their best when it matters the most. And right now, it matters the most. Whether it's with our children, whether it's with our spouses, our friends, our colleagues, all the people that make up our life. And one of the things we talk about a lot is that we don't believe people enter our lives by accident. We believe that our lives intersect quite by assignment. And so we have a choice in this moment, in this season, of how we interact with those people. If we language, what's our brand message? How are we showing up, right? If we're going to be our best when it matters the most, that means bring your best stuff. And right now, the other people need our best stuff. They need that message. They need that smile. They need that encouragement. They need that focus. They need to know that it's going to be okay. You think about every hero archetype. They all showed up and they made life better. They all showed up and made it seem like everything was going to be okay. The toughest fight we have in my business is convincing people that there's a hero that lives inside of them. Because most people shrink from that idea. Their humility gets the best of them. And our passion, our mission is to convince people, whether you're a mom, whether you're a teacher, whether you're our military men and women for sure, gold standard when it comes to heroes, whatever it is that you do, you have an opportunity to make life better for somebody, to pick people up, to make them believe that everything's going to be okay. And I think if we all did a little bit more of that, I think life would be a whole lot better.
What message you have for somebody that they still feel like they're like you were in April? What message would you have for somebody that just feels like they've not been able to get out of it at all?
I think the one thing is like when we were with Josh. You know, when we sat there and he was 5 years old, and I listened, I heard the same thing that Lisa heard, right? The doctor said, your son's not going to do these things. And I immediately went into pity party mode. I started thinking about everything. I mean, I wanted my life that I wanted to live through that child had just vanished. And he wasn't going to do all these wonderful things that I had planned for him. And she heard the exact same story. She, you know, tears fell for 30 seconds. And then she straightened herself. She got focused on what her boy was going to do, and she went after it. And I think that's the message, because we did it in our business. Almost exactly played out, you know, 20-something years later. I'm sitting there. She heard the same COVID message I did, and I stuck my head in the sand, and she went to work. She started making the list. And we'd had a list in our business before about online training, video-based, virtual, and all, because that's the world we live in. We should have been working on that anyway. What COVID has done is revealed our weaknesses. It's revealed the blind spots in our business. And so my wife took my wish list, and she went and she put it right in front of me, and she said, here's your new priority list. And I said, what are you talking about? She goes, we need to find a TV studio. We need to find the resources. We need to find the right partners. We need to figure out virtual. So pull your head out of the sand and let's go to work. And so that's the message. Pull your head out of the sand and go to work. Because if we'll focus on where we're going instead of where we are, that pulls us along. You know, people are either running from something or they're running to something. And my wife has taught me it's much better to run towards something than to be chased down by something. And a lot of people are being overtaken by this COVID season. And so it's putting that vision in front of us and then get up every day and put one foot in front of the other to chase it.
And I know I'm interviewing you and not your wife, but let's put us in here too. I'm a big fan of your wife here. So what would you say is the best way to communicate that? Like, you're a leader, you're trying to pull somebody out of that. What would you have them do, or what's the best way to have them do that?
Well, the great thing about it is if we invite them into the conversation, a lot of our people already have those answers, right? My wife just invited me into the conversation, and I already knew the answers, but she had this way. What if we were going to do virtual, what would be the first thing we'd do? And I'd start, I'd make the list. And she was like, exactly, so let's just do that. And it's fascinating as leaders, if we go to our people, they already know adjustments we should have. They already knew where our blind spots were. Long before COVID hit, they already knew, because they're the ones on the front line. They're the ones interacting with our clients and our customers. They're the ones that are in the trenches every single day making our businesses work. I just pulled the team together and I started asking questions. I think one thing about leadership, heroic leadership in particular, is we have to be vulnerable. If you think about hero archetypes, they were always willing to show their human side, their frail side, their whatever it was that they were running from. And whatever they were running from caused them to transform into a hero that began running towards something. And so Batman is a great example. Bruce Wayne was running from his parents being murdered. He was running from that. The demons were chasing him. And then somewhere along the line, he transitioned into having this much bigger vision, this much bigger idea of being able to go out and save the world. And I know what everybody's thinking. They're thinking, okay, come on, man. Batman, that's pure fiction, man. This is real life. But the truth is, most of what holds us back is pure fiction. We make it up in our own mind. We make up what we can't do. Listen, we are resilient people. We are creative people. We didn't carve out the careers that we have. We didn't build the life we have. We didn't raise the children that we have by not being resilient, by not being resourceful. I mean, listen, when we were kids, we could turn a box into a spaceship, okay? I think as adults, we might want to go back to that idea of creativity, and what can we do with this box? But if we'll invite people into the conversation, they'll tell you how to get there. We just think as leaders sometimes we need to know all the answers, and we don't.
Awesome.
We need to know the right questions.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for coming on and
pleasure.
for joining us and sharing this message of hope and of heroes. And we really appreciate it. So thanks.
My pleasure,
again.
man. It's great to see you.
So for everybody tuning in, make sure to go sign up for next week's speaker, who is Rick Rigsby. And by the way, Kevin, you mentioned like half the speakers we've had. Like Andy Andrews has been on here, Simon T. Bailey, and now we've got Dr. Rick Rigsby. So you're a fan. Why don't you tell about Rick Rigsby? You do a better job than I do.
Dr. Rick Rigsby. We were on a program earlier this year in Texas, and I don't get to meet a lot of the speakers who are on the program, because we're all moving in and out. But I knew he was there. I got there so that I could go backstage and meet this guy, and I just turned into a pure fan. I went backstage, and I was giddy, and I got to meet him. I got to shake his hand, and what he talks about, what he learned from a third grade dropout, when he tells his story, It is magnetic, and it is one of the most beautiful stories that I have ever heard. If you do not want to miss Dr. Rick Rigsby, I can assure you of that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that. For those who do want to sign up, go to freevirtualfridays.com or premierspeakers.com/free and sign up. So, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Good to see you, man.